Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, February 23rd, 2010. And I know it's been a while since I've last updated. It's been a busy semester. I'm going to try to begin doing these video blogs more frequently, as I was last semester. But the big thing I want to talk about in this blog is the CPAC convention that we had over this last weekend. I attended CPAC for the first time in my life. As a former leftist, I never would have dreamed of attending CPAC, but I did, and it was well worth it, believe me. As most of you already know, Ron Paul won the CPAC straw poll. He got a record percentage, 31%, beat Mitt Romney by almost double digits. Mitt Romney was far and away the expected winner of the convention. Of the straw poll, and Ron Paul took it. He delivered an amazing, brilliant speech on Friday afternoon. If you haven't seen it, you need to go on YouTube and watch it. It is one of the greatest speeches I've ever seen. Paul delivered probably the most convincing speech I've ever seen on a foreign policy of non-intervention. So if you watch my blogs and you're not quite convinced in what I have to say about foreign policy, watch Dr. Paul's speech, because the way he articulates his position on foreign policy is it's excellent. He talks about how the Republican Party has a tradition of non-interventionism, talks about Eisenhower, the military-industrial complex. And even if you come from the left, it's a great speech. He talks about Eugene Debs and some of those figures. So I strongly recommend you watch it. It was amazing. I mean, he got a standing ovation throughout the entire speech. Of course, he nailed the Fed, the Federal Reserve. He talked about free markets as well. But the crux of the speech was foreign policy. So definitely watch it. So, what are some lessons that we can learn from the CPAC convention? The media is trying to spin this as, well, there were a bunch of young people there. That's why Ron Paul won. I mean, exactly. But doesn't the Republican Party want the youth vote? That's why the Republicans lost in 2008, because Barack Obama seized the youth vote and won the election. So conservatives should not be dismayed by the fact that Ron Paul has has the support of young people. I mean, and let me tell you, from the perspective of someone who attended, young people were everywhere. I would say, I don't know how many young people were there, but I would say 9 out of 10 of those people supported Ron Paul. Maybe 8 out of 10. I mean, it was a very high percentage. The Ron Paul supporters, they were all under 40 years old. I mean, this is the future. And if you're an older American watching this, I mean, just trust me, young people love this message. This is the future of whether it's going to be the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, maybe a future Liberty Party, I don't know. But the young people are the future of this movement, and we need to listen. If you're an older American, you need to listen to our grievances and so on. I mean, why are young people so attracted to Ron Paul's message? Well, I think it's simple. I mean, we are worried about the debt. Because at the end of the day, it's our generation who is going to have to pay for all of this reckless spending, for these endless wars, for all of especially the entitlement programs. These entitlement programs are bankrupting our nation. I've been paying into Social Security for roughly 10 years of my life, which I know isn't a long time, but I know that I'm never going to see that money again when I retire. I mean, the money isn't going to be there. It's going to be gone. Same with Medicare. So young people, we do not want to continue paying into these entitlement programs. So we're angry about that. We're angry about the endless wars. Wars. We're tired of it. I mean, why is it our business to go around the world telling other people how to live? We spend $1 trillion, as Dr. Paul mentioned in his speech, we spend $1 trillion a year on our world empire. $1 trillion. Okay, we can't afford that anymore, and young people recognize that. That's why Ron Paul is so loved among them. But look at how the media spins this entire event. They try to dismiss it. Every year when Romney's won in the past, it was front page news. Romney's picture was everywhere. If Huckabee won, Huckabee would have been all over media. Same with Palin. But Paul wins, and the media tries their very hardest to ignore it. I mean, that should tell you something. More and more Americans, not surprisingly, are distrusting the mainstream media, and this is why, because they take a legitimate candidate who has legitimate grassroots support, like Ron Paul, and they try to brush him aside as nobody. So, the mainstream media hates this guy. So if you're still not convinced that Ron Paul and his ideas are the best way to go, just consider the fact that the corporate media, it doesn't matter, Fox News hates him, MSNBC doesn't pay any attention to him, CNN brushes him aside too. That should tell you something about the legitimacy of Ron Paul's campaign. So, also, a lot of people are concerned about the Tea Party movement, and they're saying, well, Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin are killing the Tea Party movement. And while it's true that Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin are trying to hijack the Tea Party movement, which, by the way, began in 2007 with the Ron Paul campaign. Ron Paul is the original Tea Party movement. I'm not concerned about it because we haven't gone anywhere. Okay, just because the Tea Party convention with its 900 people in attendance, and you had to spend like $500 for a ticket. That's not the real Tea Party movement. The real Tea Party movement is us. And so I'm not worried about Beck. Glenn Beck is losing credibility on a daily basis. That's not to say that he is never right. He's right on a lot of things. But Glenn Beck does not sympathize with our movement. Neither does Sarah Palin. So don't worry about those guys. At the end of the day, we're still here. We're making an impact. The revolution is underway. I feel very optimistic. I'm very positive after this weekend for this movement. I think we've got big things ahead of us, and people are waking up. They're talking about the Federal Reserve. They're talking about a non-interventionist foreign policy. They're talking about civil liberties. As Ron Paul said in his speech, young people today do not want their liberty in bits and pieces. We want the whole package. We want our economic liberties, we want our civil liberties, and we want our personal liberties. And we're not going to accept a package where we have to sacrifice one for the other. We want all three. And we want, of course, a cut to this debt spending and an end to our overseas empire. So don't worry about Beck and Palin. History will forget them. History will remember us. History will look very kindly upon our movement, and Ron Paul will go down as, if not the greatest congressman in the United States history, one of the best because of what he's done. Last little bit, after attending this convention and seeing the tension at CPAC between the true lovers of liberty and the neoconservatives, I've come to the conclusion that in 2012 we are going to see three major candidates. Barack Obama, a neoconservative, it'll either be Romney, it'll probably be Romney, or Huckabee or Palin, and then we're going to see a major third party, and it will either be, whether it's Ron Paul, Andrew Napolitano, Gary Johnson, I don't know, but a libertarian will run in the general election and will pose a huge challenge to Barack Obama. Now, who knows? We might get lucky and the Republican Party might nominate Ron Paul or another Ron Paul type Republican. I'm not sure at this point. We've got a long way to go till the Republican primary. But if Ron Paul or whoever or another libertarian gets the Republican nomination, we'll still see a third party. It'll just be a neoconservative third party. So that's my prediction. You've heard it here, and I'm sure from other sources, but we will see three major candidates run in 2012 because we have three major ideologies. Two of them are statist, Barack Obama, and then the neoconservatives, and then the third option is liberty. And again, I don't know if it will be Ron Paul or not. I used to think, for a time, I began to think that Ron Paul might be too old to run in 2012. After watching his speech, however, and some of the events at CPAC, I've come to the conclusion that Ron Paul is a very viable candidate for 2012. I don't think he'll be too old. And besides, it's not about him, it's about the idea. And I think Ron Paul is able to articulate those ideas in ways that reach out to a broad spectrum of Americans, whether they're coming from the so-called left or the so-called right. he has a broad appeal. So anyway, that's all. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you guys soon. Bye.